All right, let's get into it. We're talking about Robert Greene. You've probably heard of him. He's one of the most influential and, yeah, most controversial authors on power strategies out there. But to really get his philosophy, you have to get to know the man himself. His own life, full of struggle, is really the key to understanding everything he writes.
And that brings us to the big question at the heart of all his work, one that kind of flips the script on what we all think power is. It's not about being a president or a CEO, not in the way you might think. It's something way more personal, much more internal.
So how in the world did this guy become the global expert on power? Well, it's a huge paradox, really. For years, the man felt completely powerless. He wasn't some Ivy League grad or born leader. He was just a guy trying to find his way, bouncing between one odd job and another. I mean, look at this path. It was anything but a straight line. This timeline shows a man just hungry for experience, working construction for a detective agency, teaching English in Spain. But by the time he hit his late 30s, that journey had taken a serious toll. He was depressed, even had suicidal thoughts, feeling like he was going absolutely nowhere.
And this is the moment where everything just changed. He was working in Italy, met a book packager, and pitched an idea. As he describes it, the concept for the 48 Laws of Power just poured out of him. It was this raw, emotional reaction to all those years of frustration and feeling powerless in a world full of games.
So all that raw experience, that's what really shaped his core philosophy. Because when Robert Greene talks about power, he is not talking about what you see on the news. He's totally redefining the word, making it something that's accessible to literally anyone, anywhere.
At its heart, his definition of power is really an emotional one. It's an internal feeling. It's that sense that you aren't helpless, that you have some control over your life, and that you can navigate the world without being a sucker.
And this really shows you the huge difference in how he sees things. We tend to think of power as external, right? Controlling other people, playing political games. But Greene flips that completely on its head. He says if you can't control yourself, your own emotions, your reactions, you can't control anything else. Real power has to start from the inside out. This is such a critical idea. Greene argues that it's that feeling of being helpless that turns people passive-aggressive, that makes them play all these negative little games to get what they want. That feeling of powerlessness, he says, is maybe the most miserable and corrupting feeling a human can have. Okay, so if playing direct power games isn't the whole story, what is? Well, that brings us to another huge part of his work, seduction. But wait, forget romance for a minute. For Greene, seduction is this really sophisticated form of influence. It's a way to get people on your side, in business, in politics, in life, by lowering their defenses and making them want to go along with you.
So what makes someone truly seductive? It really all comes down to being outer-directed. It's about silencing that constant voice in your head going, how do I look? What should I say? Do they like me? And just listening. You absorb who the other person is, what they want, what they feel is missing, and you reflect that back to them. That kind of deep, generous attention is so rare, and that's what makes it incredibly powerful. And then you've got the total opposite. The anti-seducer. We all know people like this. They're completely trapped in their own head. They preach their own opinions, they're insecure, and their focus is always on themselves. This self-absorption just makes other people feel drained and awkward, and you just instinctively want to get away.
And this is such a vital distinction. Vulnerability can be super seductive. It's an openness, like showing a small wound that makes people want to connect with you, to help you. But insecurity, that's anti-seductive. It's pure self-absorption, and it just pushes people away. It's a subtle but massive difference. So, if power and seduction are these social strategies, what grounds you? What stops you from just becoming a total manipulator? Well, this is where Greene's idea of mastery comes in. It's the foundation. It's the idea that true, unshakable confidence doesn't come from playing games. It comes from having a real skill, a real purpose.
And this is the bedrock of it all. You can't fake real confidence. People can sniff it out instantly. See, real confidence isn't just acting tough. It's based on something tangible. It comes from actions, from things you've actually done and accomplished. It comes from mastering a skill.
So how do you even get there? Greene lays out this plan he calls the apprenticeship phase. First, you just observe everything. Be a sponge. Learn the unspoken rules of whatever field you're in. Second, you have to prioritize learning over money. Take the job where you'll gain the most knowledge, even if it doesn't pay as well. And third, you experiment. You have to learn by doing, because that's just how our brains are wired.
And this is where the whole story comes together.
Because in 2018, all of Robert Greene's theories about power, control, and helplessness were put to the ultimate test in his own life.
In August of 2018, he had a severe stroke that left the entire left side of his body paralyzed. Think about that. A man who had built his life around being active, swimming, hiking, biking, a man who was fiercely independent, suddenly had it all ripped away.
And this quote, it just captures everything. He finally experienced that feeling of total powerlessness that he had written about for decades. It wasn't a theory anymore. He felt weak, dependent, helpless. And in his words, it was absolutely miserable.
But here's what's so powerful about his story. That experience of true, absolute helplessness gave him a visceral empathy, not some intellectual idea, but a deep, physical understanding for anyone who feels dependent or poor or disabled. He finally understood it in his own body.
And this is the message he shares now. Those simple abilities, the power to walk your dog, to type on a keyboard, to tie your own shoes, are things we all take for granted. But they can be taken away in an instant. It's this incredibly powerful plea for us to feel gratitude for the everyday power we don't even realize we have.
Which really leaves us with this one last thought. As you go about your day, what simple power, the ability to walk, to create something, to just connect with a friend, have you forgotten to appreciate? What part of your life, if you look at it through Greene's eyes, is a source of strength that you've been overlooking all this time?